I mean, it reminds me of I think it was Franklin Roosevelt once said, be sincere, be brief, and be serious. So that kind of ties in with procrastination. Now, our third and final formal speaker tonight is Charlie Warshawski. And again, another experienced Toastmaster, and hopefully you will see him visit one of the meetings in the coming year. His evaluator is Alexander Walden. So, Alexander, if you could share his objectives, please.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, Charlie's objectives. He has the overarching goal to persuade us on his topic, and he set himself the side goal to improve the clarity of his communication.
Thank you, Alexander. Charlie has worked with hundreds of schools and thousands of teachers, both in the state and independent sectors, for the last 18 years. He just doesn't look old enough, does he? But he has some views about the educational climate that may be relevant tonight for students, for teachers, for us parents, and in fact for anyone else not in that category. So with a speech entitled Best Outcome for All, sorry Mr. Lopez, 789 for the speech, yeah? With a speech entitled Best Outcomes for All Students, please give a warm welcome to Toastmaster Charlie Warshawski.
What's the purpose of education? And can we have a fair and excellent education system that does the best for all students in the country? Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, fellow Reeds Toastmasters, these are questions that I've been asking myself a lot. I've been asking them a lot in this last week, particularly because of this talk of considering nationalising independent schools. That was a Labour Party manifesto commitment. But also, I've been thinking about these questions since 1996, when my oldest child was born. And I'm very interested in education. I'm very interested in seeing, can we both have excellence and fairness? So I'm going to share some thoughts, I'm going to share some views, I'm going to share a few slides. Moving a child to an independent school is a really difficult decision to make. I've got 4 children. My 2 older children went to state schools. My 2 younger children started at state schools and have moved over to the independent sector. I've had a lot of grief for that. I've had a lot of applause for that, but I've had a lot of grief for that too. It is a dilemma. And the main reason that I chose to move these children over to the independent sector is quite simply because my experience in the state sector was that there was too much government interference, so great teachers couldn't do what they needed to do. Many agonising nights talking about this. Reed students, anyone here notice their parents having challenging conversations, difficulties, worries when they thought about putting you into independent schooling? Yeah, we've heard some of those, haven't we? Not an easy choice to make. And I don't want to say state sector terrible, independent sector brilliant. It's not as black and white as that. But I want to share some views. The education system is complicated in this country. We don't just have 2 types of schools. We have all of these types of schools. And what's fascinating here is that these schools can choose their rules. You want to be in the national curriculum? Fine. You want to be out of it? Fine. You want SATs? Okay. You don't want SATs? Okay. You want to self-fund? Okay. You want to have our funding? Okay. It's a proper classic British fudge. So it's no wonder that there's confusion, and it's no wonder that there's a lack of clarity. State sector schools do all sorts of incredible things. It's free for every student in the country. It's a highly professionalised profession where teachers have to be trained and qualified to do their job. There are some incredible schools. There are some incredible outcomes, results, incredible teachers. But there's also problems in the state sector. Too much government regulation. Testing that doesn't work very well. An inspection regime that is too rigid. Teachers who are often exhausted and a bit disenfranchised. Then we have the independent sector. And we have this stereotype image of the independent sector. Why does it work? We think it's because we have selective. There are Eton pictures that have been going around all week. Because we have lots of resources, lots of cash in order to be able to do stuff. And because we have engaged parents, like this average family couple. But my experience is different. My experience says that those things may be true, but actually what's more true is that independent schools are freer of state regulation. They're allowed to follow advanced curriculum, advanced teaching practices. They can recruit and retain for longer. And what they're able to do and achieve with their students pushes a long way. High expectations, high achievement. We see that a lot. So this debate, this dilemma, I find it fascinating. Should we nationalise independent schools? That's this year's debate. But 2 years ago, the debate was, should we bring back the grammar schools? 5 years ago, the debate was, should we have academies? 15 years ago was, should we bring back secondary modern schoolings? The debate goes on and goes on and goes on, and it's asking the wrong question. I call this the politics of distraction. We talk about where children should be educated, who they should be educated with, even what subjects. Those comments about should we be teaching this subject or that subject. Actually, the research shows that the most important question is how children are taught. Not what, not who, not where, but how. We are in really, really fortunate times when the research has been done. College teachers, you'll know about Professor John Hattie. He's done some incredible research. He has looked at all the research that has been carried out in education for the last 50 years. 1/3 of a trillion students, 300,000 studies. And so he's got a little league table of what works. From works very well to works quite well to really avoid it. And time and again, it's surprising. We see uniform makes very little difference. Looking very smart, by the way, makes little difference. Homework in primary school makes very little difference. Class sizes makes not very much difference. What makes difference is the quality of the teaching. What makes the biggest difference is the quality of the relationship between the teacher and the student. And why I think that the independent sector thrives is because the circumstances let that happen. The circumstances allow this great teaching to happen. So, we have a debate. We have a debate periodically in my family. My son, my eldest son, he went to a state school, he went to university, he's become a teacher. He's very interested in this. And we share some views, but we also don't share some views. So we played this game called Education Minister for the Day. We know how to have fun in my family. And the debate goes like this. You suggest something if you're Education Minister, and I'll suggest something, and we take turns, and it takes about an hour and a half, and my wife generally tends to go to walk the dog. She has enough of it. These are my views. This is what my current list is. This is, if they made me in charge, this is what I would do. The first thing is I would take education out of the hands of politicians. I mean, we know they've done a fantastic job with Brexit, but after that, we need to say it's too important. It shouldn't be a political decision maker. It's too important. They're busy recently saying we should follow the best countries in the world like Sweden, we should copy their ideas. But actually, Sweden is the only country in the world who has done this. They have an independent education department that doesn't be attached to the government. That sits there at arm's length, that makes great decisions. I'd do that. And I would give them the power and put teachers and school leaders and parents and social policy makers in the mix to be able to decide what do we want for education for the whole country. That'd be my first thing. My second thing is, if we're going to have testing, have good testing and have the same testing for everyone. We have SATs that goes on in schools, state schools, they hate it. Do you know what they call year 6 in state schools? They call it the zombie year. The year when the kids do maths, English, and pass their test. The zombie year. So if SATs are rubbish, get rid of them, but have good testing that every school is able to do. My third one is best practice widely shared. This has been my big problem with this whole nationalisation agenda. Independent schools and also state schools have some great teaching practice, some brilliant teaching practice. We need to look at that, we need to see that, we need to understand it, and then we need to share it widely, especially the stuff that is based on research. That's really important. And then we can do this next one, the fourth on my list, is when Ofsted or ISI come and inspect the schools, we're looking for this. We're looking for best practice. That the research says works well. And if we pick it up, we commend, and if we see it's absent, we encourage them to use the practice. The fifth one, funding. Funding. The situation here is state schools get £6,000 per student per year. The average independent school gets £17,000 per student per year. You can do a lot more with that extra £11,000 a year. If we want world-class schools, we need that level of funding. That's important. In state schools, you get a subject specialist at 11, secondary, don't you? That's when you get your French teacher who speaks French. That's when you get your geographer who teaches geography. In the independent sector, it's at 7. Well, why shouldn't we have that? Why shouldn't every 7-year-old have a French-speaking French teacher? We need to fund it. We need to fund it. And then finally, if we need to level the playing field, let's do this. The idea that a university application doesn't turn up that says, you know, I went to Charterhouse, I went to Winchester, even I went to Rees. But it says candidate X has got 3 A-levels, has got 4 A-levels. Let us choose on a meritocratic basis, not on a name basis. It then means the independent sector can say students get through here because they get great results, rather than because of the name of the school. So let me return to the beginning, and let me return to my original question. Can we have a world-class education system that gives everyone the best chance of a great education? I think yes, but I think not what we're doing now. We need to work together. We need to bring the best ideas up and have a focus on what we want from our education system for the benefits of you students here, but also for the benefit of the next generation of students and the generation of students to come. Mr. Tasman.